Hello and welcome to Talking Europe. France's debt has reached a record 3.228 trillion euros, amounting to 112% of GDP. That's well above the cap set by EU rules. Of course, France isn't the only member state to have racked up debt during COVID and the energy crisis. Several countries have been reprimanded by the European Commission for breaking budget rules. But because the French economy is one of Europe's largest, France's EU partners are watching the situation nervously. Well, to discuss this, I'm joined by Stéphanie Yon-Courtin, a French MEP from the centrist Renew Europe group, and also with me, Dirk Gottink, a Dutch MEP from the Conservative European People's Party, and both of them sit on the Committee on Economic and Monetary Affairs. Welcome to both of you.
Hello.
Stéphanie Yon-Courtin, first of all, on the French Prime Minister's general political statement, and particularly his targets for reducing the French debt next year and by 2029. Were you convinced by that?
Well, nothing new, I would say. We already knew that there is as Michel Barnier said during his oral statement before the National Assembly, that there is a sword of Damocles hanging over France, and as you recalled, over Europe as well, since France is quite important within Europe. So it doesn't come as a surprise, I would say. Now, it's very important, it's urgent to act, to reduce. We've already think about that. I mean, the previous government, and in particular the Minister of Economy, Bruno Le Maire, has already prepared a trajectory that Michel Barnier will work on it and will adjust according to the latest forecast, and you mentioned the high level of debt and deficit, and so it's very important to act, of course.
We'll come back to the actual roadmap, but Dirk Gottink first. When the French Prime Minister says that the French public finances, the situation of the finances, weakens France in Europe, do you agree with that?
I think it's clear that if you're in an excessive deficit procedure, which is the formal procedure that shows that your budget is going over the limits that were set in the Eurozone, then it's clear that you're not anymore, you cannot pretend to be leading if you do that from behind. And the fact that you're running to a 6% deficit, you have state debt levels that are significantly increasing, but also servicing costs. The amount of debt servicing costs that citizens in France have to pay is very big. It compares almost to education and healthcare. So it's very serious, yes. And not only for France, because if France has a financial problem, Europe also has a financial problem.
And Stéphanie Yon-Courtin, of course, whether he can actually achieve these budget deficit reductions will depend on whether the French government can get a new budget passed through Parliament, and this could be a problem, couldn't it?
Yeah, well, this adds to the complexity of the situation. I mean, there is a major, as you know, instability in France. I do hope that Michel Barnier will manage to get a compromise, good compromise from the National Assembly and the Senate, the upper chamber. I trust his negotiator, ex-Brexit negotiator talent and conviction to be able to convince to adapt. He has already, and he did that last week when he had this delivered his speech, suggested some main axes, like also taxing the richest firms and people, and to just see how we could cut this and address things.
Where do you think, Dirk, where do you think France can realistically make savings? And is this tax plan on the richest people in France and on corporations, large corporations, is that the right way to go, do you think, or not?
Well, first of all, like Ms. Yon-Courtin, I think the fact that in Parliament there is so little, in fact, realization of what should be done in the coming years. And it's not just something from yesterday, it's something that has been building up for years during the last presidencies. Bruno Le Maire has been very vocal before the elections about the problems. So I would really call not to stick in programmatic radicalism, I would say, that no one compromises. You need to bring it forward, and first of all, you need to cut public spending. It is France's public spending is at 57 or 58% of GDP, which is one of the highest in Europe. Many economists have already proven that economies work less well for the people if most of the economy consists of public spending. So in a way, to get the growth engine of France back, and luckily France is still growing a bit, but we need France to stay that engine in the economy, just like we need Germany to be that. You will need to make some difficult choices, yes.
Yeah, and that's actually what the Netherlands is doing now, isn't it? They've announced spending some cuts in certain aspects of the public sector, which is going to be controversial.
Which we are making some very difficult decisions. The central bank had advised that we go towards 2% deficit. The government is now aiming at 2.5%. But we were en route for 3% as well. So we made the difficult decisions. Also, with every party in the coalition had trouble, has to explain that to their voters. But if you cannot explain to your voters that in the long term it is better for the country, because we are living now in good times. Money was cheap for a very long time. Economy is going reasonably well. If we don't prepare the ship for bad weather in the future, then it will be even worse.
Well, I agree. I mean, public spending is one thing, and I agree with that. And I think we have to be responsible. I think it's really a question of responsibility for everybody, because otherwise it will increase, and we will pass this on to the new generations. So when my colleague talks about the compromise and the fact that we need to explain this to all the political spectrum, to all groups, I think it's very important, because when I hear some groups speaking about austerity, I think it's nonsense. I mean, public spending is enormous in France, and sometimes, I mean, it doesn't bring all that we're expecting from that. And I think we need to clarify that. I mean, that's not the only thing. And as you mentioned rightly as well, France got the chance to have a growth quite stable and ongoing growth comparing to Germany. So, and France is still attractive. And needs to push as well on this attractiveness and on the competitiveness. And there was a huge work done under the leadership of Emmanuel Macron and Gabriel Attal as well, the former Prime Minister, to push for more competitiveness, reindustrialization. And I think this also is very important. So we have to keep companies, businesses on board, also simplification. Is very important for the rest of the economy.
You mentioned competitiveness, which is a key word in this whole discussion, because of course the Draghi report talks about the need to make massive investments to make Europe more competitive, 800 million euros if possible. But how can one do that when most European countries, Dirk Gotting, are under this pressure to cut spending as well?
Yes, sometimes in Brussels we're not very aware that in every single member state, in every capital, they're preparing their national budgets now. And they make very difficult decisions about who will get a bit more, but also who will get a bit less. And if we are not aware of this reality, we will never understand the difficulty of making a real budget, because the European budget works a bit differently than the one of the national parliaments. I think we have to be, first of all, look at the analysis of Draghi. We shouldn't be distracted by the 800 billion. I think it was a mistake that he put it in there because everyone's only talking about that. The key analysis is that we're wasting a lot of public money. We're spending it more times than we need to, because we're either not working well together or we're not choosing the right priorities. That we need to do now and urgently. In terms of public financing, that means also nationally making decisions about what can we do more together. In terms of national investments, for example, in defense spending. You could look at ways that the Dutch and the Germans invest more together in land military infrastructure. It is something that is being done between countries already quite a lot. But the urgency is there. It will not be solved by new public debt, because in fact, public debt for countries like the Netherlands or Germany is simply more expensive in Europe than their own financing. Yeah. So the RRF, the Recovery Fund model, we will not talk about that, is actually not a solution for the financing problem of the European Union.
Is there a risk, because we don't have much time, Stephanie, but is there a risk of incurring new debt as a result of these investments, the strategic investments that we're supposed to be making?
I mean, it's clear, quite clear. We have no more public money to spend. And if we want to achieve competitiveness, prosperity, the second leg, which has to work and in complementary with public investment, let's say, which is rare, is private money. And I think what is very key and important in the Draghi report is the fuel, is how to finance and invest. This is through private money, 800 billion per year, but it's massive. We need massive investment to finance the transitions, the twin transitions, digital, green, and of course maybe defense, and also maybe demographic tomorrow. And so to do so, the capital market union is urgent, but it's just a jigsaw. It's a huge, a massive puzzle. So we have to select and identify the priorities, the pieces. And myself, since I'm re-elected and I'm doing now a second mandate, I was rapporteur on the retail investment strategy, which is now entering the trilogues, and which is a great idea to put and inject some more fresh money into the real economy to finance the competitiveness through massive savings from the European citizens.
Okay, we'll end it there. Thank you so much to both of you, Dirk Gottink and Stéphanie Joncourtin, for this debate. Thanks for following us here on Talking Europe.